Welcome. I'm Dr. Bill, and you can call me Bill. My stage name is Dr. Bill. So I'm a founding member of the John Maxwell team, and I'm going to digress a little bit today, and still going to be talking about leadership, but not a 21 law. So this guy's walking down the street, and he's walking past this elementary school. And he gets to the playground part, and he hears the usual commotion and yelling that you hear on a playground when kids are out for recess. But you know how they have cyclone fence around the playground? Well, this one had one of those tarps around it that you see sometimes around construction sites. And as he gets closer to the playground, he hears, it's more organized yelling and screaming. And he looks over, and there's like a broomstick being held up and a piece of paper on it, and says 13. And he hears the kids going, 13, 13, 13. And you know, he's curious, but that fence is blocked, so he can't see anything. So he gets to the end of the street, and he's going to cross the street, and he's waiting for traffic to clear. And he noticed that when he was walking down the sidewalk, the kids they seemed to be following him along with the, excuse me for a second here. They were following him along, and that broomstick seemed to be following him along too. And when he got to the corner and he's waiting for the traffic, the thing had stopped there, and they were going 13, 13. And the traffic was kind of heavy, and he's looking around, and he looks down, and you know they have those little peepholes that you can look through to see what's going on the other side? It's only about 20 feet down the corner. So curiosity gets the best of him, and he turns the corner, and he's walking down to the peephole, and the broomstick turns the corner too. And they're going 13, and it's getting louder now, 13, 13. And he gets over to the peephole, and usually it's about up here, but it's down about this level. And instead of just having a big thing, it's just a little hole like that. So he bends down, and he takes off his sunglasses, and he looks in there, and a kid pokes him in the eye. And all of a sudden he hears, 14, 14, 14. I don't know what the devil that has to do with leadership, but I think there was a leader with that broomstick. Let me ask you a question. Who do you think the hardest person to lead that you'll ever lead is? Any volunteers?
Myself.
Exactly. Yourself. The hardest person you will ever lead is yourself. Now let me ask you another question. Who's the first person that you should be leading? Okay. Now, leaders operate from a belief system. Henry Ford said one time, he said that there's two types of people in this world. Those who believe they can do something, and those who believe they can't do something. And they're both right. Now, the person who believes they can do something, his self-talk is pretty much affirmative. And the person who believes he can't do something, his self-talk is a limiting belief. Now, where do you think limiting beliefs come from? Anybody?
Our upbringing.
Okay. Family of origin and our upbringing. Life experiences, our culture, the media. So we may have had a well-meaning relative, a father or mother that says to us, "Oh, honey, I don't want to see you get your hopes up. I'd hate to see you to get disappointed." Well, what happens with our subconscious is this stuff gets buried in our subconscious, and it's a tape that keeps replaying. So anytime we're faced with a new challenge or something, these tapes kick in. Initially, it was meant to protect somebody, but it has the effect of having a limiting belief on you. Now, there's a book that just came out by Malcolm Gladwell, David and Goliath. If you haven't read this book will blow you away. He takes the story that everybody knows about and puts a different spin on it. You see, we're fighting giants in our life. That's what Goliath represents. And these giants, it's almost like the Wizard of Oz when you pull back the curtain and you find out that he really isn't that big. So 3,000 years ago, on the coast of the Mediterranean, there's a valley called the Valley of Elah. And that valley runs from the coast up into the mountains. Now, the Israelis were up in the mountains. The Philistines were seafaring people, and they were settling the coast, and they wanted to take more territory. So they started moving up the valley. Now, as is the custom in those times, there's something called single combat. The custom for armies in this time period was that they would choose a warrior to represent them, and he would fight the warrior from the other side, winner take all. So we all know the story. They picked Goliath. The Philistines did. Now Goliath, by modern terms and research they've done, they figure he was about 8'6". Average person in this time was about 5 feet tall. Now, he came into the valley and he was yelling insults at the Israelis and challenging them for weeks. And this is a battle-tested army of warriors with the Israelis, but their self-talk was, I'm not going down there. And so into this scenario walks this 13-year-old freckle-faced shepherd boy, David. Now, if the average height was 5 feet tall and he's 13 years old, we can pretty much guess he was shorter than 5 feet. So he was there delivering some food, probably some chocolate chip cookies or something from home to his brothers who were in the army. And he said, what's all the commotion? And they said, this guy's down there and he's threatening everybody to single combat and challenging everybody, and nobody wants to go down. And David heard some of the insults that Goliath was hurling at him, and he got upset, and he said, well, I'll go down there and fight him. And everybody's looking at him like, are you crazy? And he says, no, I'll go down there. He says, I brought my slingshot with me. And at first everybody's going, this kid's nuts. But then they realized he was serious, and King Saul of the Israelis, he actually gave him his armor to put on. So David puts on the helmet, and it's fitting over his head like this, and gives him his armor for his legs and everything, and he can't even walk, and he just laughs, and David takes all that stuff off. And he literally runs into battle. Now, along the way, he stops at a creek bed, and he picks up 5 smooth stones. The conjecture is that Goliath had 4 brothers. Now, I want you to think about this now. As David's bending over to pick up the stones, what do you think his self-talk was? Well, we know what his self-talk was because we have biblical records of it. He's telling himself, I killed a bear, I killed a lion with my slingshot. I can take this dude. And we all know the rest of the story. Now, several years ago, I had a young lady show up in my practice. I can use her first name because she wrote a book about her experience, so I don't think I'm violating any HIPAA regulations. So her name is Michelle, and she's an attractive young woman in her 30s. Very shy though, very introverted, and her whole attitude, she just looked frightened. And initially I'm thinking, well, it's because she's coming to see the dentist. Nobody likes to see the dentist. So I'm doing the health history on her, and I see that she's under psychiatric treatment, and she's taking heavy doses of anti-anxiety medication and antidepressives. And in the course of the interview, I find out that when she was 13 years old, she developed a urinary tract infection from running around with her bathing suit in the summertime and not changing. And they just gave her a routine dosage of some penicillin, and her body had an idiosyncratic reaction to it. Now, the medical abbreviation for that is WTF question mark. She sloughed all the skin on her body, both on the outside and on the inside. It got so bad that they were trying to feed her with a nasogastric tube, and she couldn't stand that because it was tearing the skin on the inside of her throat. Out of desperation, her mother moves into the ICU and starts feeding her like a mother would feed her chick. She would take a milkshake, a McDonald's milkshake, put the straw in it with her finger on it, pull it out. You lift up your finger and it drops out. That's how she kept her daughter alive. So now imagine a 13-year-old girl. She's going into womanhood, her self-esteem and everything. This is in the summertime. She starts school. She manages to live through it. Her skin grows back, but now she's on steroids. We all know what steroids do. It really puts the weight on. So for the past 20 years, she's been seeing a psychiatrist every week for post-traumatic stress. And my heart just went out to her. I've got 2 daughters. I can't even imagine how bad that would be. Now imagine my surprise. A year later, I'm flicking channels looking for Seaview Radio. A little plug for Chet here, Chet Tart with Seaview Radio. And Seaview Radio has a lot of talk shows, and I'm listening, and it sounds like Michelle is on hosting a radio talk show on post-traumatic stress. Now, usually with my patients, I end up seeing the whole family, so I've been seeing her mother, and her mother came in about 2 weeks later, and I said, Eileen, was that Michelle on the radio? She said, oh yeah, isn't it wonderful? And I said, well, what the devil happened? And she says, well, she started seeing a hypnotherapist, and it's just a complete turnaround in her life. And I've worked with hypnotherapists in the past for some sports issues, and now I've been working with a hypnotherapist for some limiting beliefs that I had starting a new business, which is the John Maxwell stuff. And so I just out of curiosity, I said, so who did she see? And she says, Laura King. Well, same one I'm seeing. Now, I've known Laura for 20 years now, and I knew she was a hypnotherapist, but I thought she had a nightclub act or something, you know. So those of you that came here for the hypnosis act, I'm not going to be walking like a duck, and Michael's not going to be barking like a dog here.
Yet.
Yet. So.
We're leaving.
So I saw a complete transformation in this young woman, to the point now when her brother got married, she and her boyfriend did a tango at the wedding reception. And this woman would never have done anything like this. Now, the reason we're bringing in a hypnotherapist here is that the goal of Leadership Business Council is to add value to the members. We're exposing you to something you may have never even heard of before or even considered, but most people are trying to go from here to there. And that place in between there is where your subconscious takes over. It's the place where your self-talk comes into play, and it's buried in your subconscious. Most people are trying to change things with sheer willpower, and willpower will only get you so far. It's 12% of your brain. 88% of the brain is this untapped subconscious. So listen to me. The most important words you will ever utter are the words that you say to yourself when you're by yourself. So it's my distinct honor to introduce Michael, who's going to introduce Laura.